I am good. All right. So great to meet you, Sonja. My name is Ismail Abdul Salam. I have a website called Beats Boxing Mayhem. So we cover hip hop, boxing, TV, film, true crime, a little bit of everything. So I'm very honored to meet you. Been a fan of you for a long time.
Thank you.
So I think a good place to start would be this isn't your first time playing a mother. You've played mothers before, even going back to The Wire, kind of a reluctant mother with Kima and her situation. And then even let's say a vengeful mother ending up in The Shy, how that situation turned out. How does Nancy Foreman, how is she different from the mothers that you played before this presentation?
How is she different? Um, it's funny. She's actually quite similar to Laverne, in The Shy, but actually very different in terms of not as bitter. Um, um, I mean, it's her faith. She's deeply faithful. She's had a really tough life, and I think the difference is how her faith really is the only thing she has that keeps everything glued together, her and the family. The resources are few in her life. She has fewer resources than all the mothers I've ever played.
And talking about faith, when that goes to the children, there's a few ways it can go. Sometimes the children follow their path if their parents are really religious. Sometimes they go the complete opposite. But then there's another aspect where they don't initially pick up a lot of that faith, but it comes later in their life when they go through some things. We kind of saw that a little bit with George. What do you feel is it about Nancy's presentation of her faith that resonated later with her children, particularly with George?
Well, you know how it is. I think when young folks grow up in a faithful home, in a deeply religious home, even though they're not, they don't ascribe. Um, Somehow, they that faith is being poured into them, and it comes back when they least expect it. They don't even know they have it until they get in a jam, and really. Wow. Well, the example set in front of me was, I guess I got to get on my knees. It might be the last thing I want to do, but the fact that it's an option is because somebody was praying in the home, praying over you, and you were witnessing that faith mattered and had some level of impact.
Absolutely, absolutely. Now, you know how men are about their mothers. They're always very protective. I was wondering if you had any conversations with George himself about your presentation, being that his mother's been gone for a few decades, or did you have to kind of put this character together all by yourself?
Oh, we spoke a couple times over the phone. I spoke with both him and his wife. Um, and we spoke about his relationship, with his mom and how tough she was on him, she was really hard on him. There are a couple of scenes that got cut out, but there's one, when he comes back home from school from after fighting. There's another,
Mhm.
where she lights into him. But we talked a lot about how that tough love, that there were two sides to that tough love, that it cut a couple of different ways. And then just being a mother myself, um um just having to sort of dive in and sort of understand how to pitch and modulate the tough and the love, um and you know the letting go, all of that, within the framework of the story.
Right, right. One thing I know you've done in your personal life with Rewire for Change is kind of knowing when to identify that inner voice, how important that is to you in your life as far as knowing what your purpose is. Some people find that in religion, some people don't. I just wanted to get your take on how do you identify that inner voice? Because it seemed like it took George a minute to find it. He did find it through religion. Some people don't. But how do people who may be struggling with that, how do they know what that inner voice is and how to be guided by it?
Yeah, it's really getting quiet and taking out, all the distractions. Just taking time to pull away from the material world. And I think it's very easy to lose focus and think that you're in touch with your small still voice, and it's actually, it's the chorus over, in the shadows. It's like, oh, that's not the small still voice. The small still voice needs me to be still and quiet. And not only that, it's a cultivation, and I, even, have had my own, it's just sort of, I think life is, constant cultivation, evolution, that's what that is. And I think part of being human is also being forgetful. And I, and going through menopause, I had a lot of forgetting going on in the last few years. And I've also, I've sort of come in and out of my own awarenesses of that voice and how, and so what is really, what I've had to really embrace again. This was a part of my spiritual practice for a while, just deep, quiet meditation, And so it's, I've been really served by that.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Because all those other voices, when those other voices quiet down, then but if we're not like cultivating that and being in the space to be sort of taught, we won't know.
Absolutely, absolutely. One other thing I've heard you say a lot about before is redemption is possible. No matter what you've gone through, you're able to redeem yourself. Redemption is possible. And we see that with George. He's able to do that. Unlike a lot of other people, he actually went back and tried to, make amends with people that he felt that he wronged. That to me is a little bit challenging now in the social media era because people do not forget your mistakes. I was wondering, just getting your take on how do you feel people can still navigate that, even in cases like now where your mistakes are just kind of documented forever, depending on if you've done them online or not.
You know what? The best way to negotiate or like a past mistake is to simply be authentic, and live your now and your future. There's nothing that throws a shadow on the past better than a big old bright sun in the now. You got to keep moving forward and cultivating your light and what understanding that we just need to understand that mistakes are part of our successes, and not go into a shame spiral about being human. We live in the social media. Everybody wants to be, judgy, porty, publicly, you know, there's a group of people that get their rocks off on that,
Right.
Glad talking about me can make you feel better about yourself. It's okay. You know what I mean?
Right.
And yeah, making amends and going back to folks in person also is very different than doing it on social media. And that's what he did. That's real courage. I mean, and making amends for the way he thought about it. That's like really detailed, deep integrity. Do you know what I mean? When people are saying, hey, even my thoughts, towards you, that energy I was directing at you, you didn't even know it. I want to apologize for it. There are meditations you can do on that where you just sit, like I have beef with this person. Let me just send them, that's another way to do that, and
Right.
that's what actually keeps the channel clear. We're going back to like how we can hear the small still voice. Keep your message clean. You know what I mean? Find ways to get that out of your spirit. If you can't address the people and face to face, then you can do it quietly.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Because everybody's not gonna forgive you.
True. Very, very true. One thing I also really like, Jasmine Mathews that plays the wife of George Foreman. A lot of times in movies like this, you see a little bit of tension between the mother and the daughter-in-law. We didn't get any of that here, which I thought was refreshing to see. I'm wondering just any scenes that you guys may have done together that didn't actually make the movie.
Um, You know, no, I don't think so. I mean, listen, she was the woman. She was deeply spiritual. See, she and Nancy, when George fell for her, he fell for a church-going woman.
Right.
So Nancy is supportive of that.
Hmm.
There was no tension that was written into the script. By the time we had gotten there, George is, you know, she's seeing him make choices which she feels are, the right choices.
Right.
There wasn't any and also even with the first wife, uh, at least he had a wife. He was settling down. Do you
Right.
know what I mean? Now there's more story, in there that we didn't play. But those are the moments I needed to play, and that was the relationship, the way I saw Nancy relating to both of those marriages.
When you talk about that tough love that Nancy did, one thing I really liked about her is she allowed George to make his mistakes, but didn't coddle him. Anytime he went to her for advice, she wasn't like, "Okay, it's going to be okay. I'll take care of you." No, she made him make sure he made his mistakes and was able to figure it out for himself. Just talk about the importance of that in his development, even early on, before he found, God again, still being able to learn to live with his mistakes and navigate through them in life.
I'm sorry, what was that last bit?
Oh, as far as giving him space to learn to make his mistakes and navigate through them, Nancy didn't coddle him, even though he called himself a mama's boy. She
Right.
wasn't there to just pick up everything. She allowed him to work through his mistakes. I want you to talk a little bit about the importance of that with the character.
Yeah, I mean, well, George was the kind of kid that was going. She didn't have a whole lot of choice. Do you know what I mean? So how do um, she was just there in the critical times. The fact that he would still come to his mom, I think is because if kids and their parents are at odds, the kids are not coming back to the parents for any kind of advice or what you believe or think about what the decision I'm going to make is not going to make a difference in terms of what I want to do. But he wanted his mom's approval, um, and um, and I thought that was a really sweet aspect of their relationship. But I think that in the end, she saw that he had something special. She knew that there was something in this child, and she knew she had to support that, and that you know what? I just lost my train of thought.
Hmm.
I just lost my train of thought on that one.
So you answered the majority of the question, no
Okay.
problem. I did also want to ask you, when I was researching the real Nancy Foreman, I found out that she had passed away in 1998. And I
Right.
believe your own mother also passed away in 1998. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. And I always feel like when you lose a parent, it does change you, but a lot of times it also gives you better focus on what you need to do in your life, even just to honor that family member. So, just as a last question, I know that you kind of started your acting journey with Slam and all that in 98 around that period too. I'm just wondering if that transition kind of pushed you forward to your life's purpose and what you wanted to do for the majority of your life.
That was a really insightful question. um, you know, I was not prepared for my mother to pass. I felt like she was young. As a matter of fact, my mother passed at the age that I'm about to be in another 2 weeks. Um, and I would say it was more my father's passing the year before, or the year or two before I got this role, that I think impacted, I guess, my work here. I see you trying to make, that parallel, you know what I mean? I think when my mother passed away, I was young and I was unprepared. And that grieving process has been decades. Um, because just, I, I was just happy that she had seen my career was about to take off. She saw me, when like an award, the Gotham like Breakthrough Artist Award, she saw like Slam was becoming successful and she passed. But I wouldn't say her passing actually, yeah, I would say that energy, when someone passes away, you feel that they're, yeah, but I gotta say, I think it was my father's passing about a year before this. I had the opportunity to take on this role that really transformed my life in a particular way. Like the grief process over my father's, death was very, very different. And this role was very much a part of the healing of some aspects of that relationship and what was meant to sort of come through. Um, and I feel like it sort of lives in Nancy and George's relationship. That's part of why it was also an honor to play this role. I just felt there were just so many just connections, personal and story, connections. Sometimes you just feel that there's an alignment.
Right. Absolutely. Well, Sonia, thank you so much for your time. Thank you for being so candid and honest with me. It was an honor speaking with you, and I enjoyed the movie. Look forward to actually watching it again in theaters.
Okay. Thank you, Ismael.
Thank you. Take care,
Bye.
everyone. Bye bye.